The stats say Clemson is decent, but our eyes say something else. We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM, The Roar. And Friday, you'll catch me on Mickey Plyler's show and Out of Bounds, filling in as a producer. So hopefully you'll tune in over there. Hey, thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're an everydayer, we big salute out there to you all for tuning in every single week, Monday through Friday, exclusive Clemson content. And if you're new to the show, well, welcome in. About 75% of you are not yet subscribed. We're getting close to that 3,000 subscriber mark over on YouTube. So what are you waiting for? Get in and be a part of the show and the excitement and the fun that we have here Monday through Friday, and also during post games after every football game. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the eye test and some thoughts going into this season, now coming in halfway through the season, what Clemson can do the rest of the season and where those leaks are. Before we get into it, I wanted to let you know that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. The stats aren't terrible. I mean, Clemson's not the worst team in the country anymore as far as total offense or total defense. They're still not in the top 25 in either category, and they're not in the top in the ACC in either category, which has been a big shock to the system. They're not terrible as they were a few weeks ago, so they've improved in some areas over time and kind of gotten back to a mean. But what we expected from this team of being one of the better offenses in the country, one of the better defenses in the country, is just not the case. But when you look at the stats, you see a lot of things that look decent, a lot of things that look, like you could lean on and leverage. But stats only tell part of the story. Clemson is statistically on paper a middle of the pack offense and a middle of the pack ACC defense. But on Saturday, they don't look like middle of the pack at all in many cases. They just don't look like Clemson at all. So which one is more real? Well, as I've mentioned to you throughout this year, when a duck looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, acts like a duck, I mean, it's a duck. So we need to call it what it is. And Clemson's just not good this season. The team doesn't seem to play very well together. When they do, it's very inconsistent. More often than not, you can expect that they won't be able to continue success if one side of the ball, complementary-wise, they're not very good. So one side of the ball does good, the other side of the ball doesn't, and vice versa. When the offensive line, it seems to be, as we mentioned, 5 nickels and not a quarter, So there's a lot of disconnect between what we're seeing on Saturdays and really what you're seeing statistically as well. Clemson's scoring defense around 21 points per game. That sounds actually pretty good, but their rushing and passing defense numbers are middle of the pack. The teams that they've played against from a defensive perspective, they've been able to run their offense almost with no problem. LSU is not that great of a football team, but was able to kind of have a pretty potent offense against Clemson, even though they really didn't throw the ball beyond 9 yards down the field. Most of the balls were behind the line of scrimmage versus Clemson. SMU looked like what we thought they would look like. Syracuse with Steve Angeli looked potent as well. No real change or disruption there. We talked about the lack of disruption this week. And then Georgia Tech, kind of ran their offense as well, no problem. So that's been the biggest shock for me, is that when you look at what your eyes are telling you this year, you're seeing like a defense that's just not putting any kind of fear in the hearts of anyone. What is causing that? Because we all kind of felt like Chris Rump would be a good defensive end coach. Lemansky Hall, if you look back, was kind of coasting. He was starting to suffer in the recruiting game. And so he had a couple of years of bad recruiting, and Dabo let him go. I think Dabo does a really good job of looking at the whole person when it comes to a position coach, and also looking at their recruiting results. That's where I would put the most emphasis on any kind of position coach. Are they bringing in better talent, or at least maintaining the talent that they have? A lot of fans that want specific position coaches gone, some of those guys on that list, in my opinion, are guys that actually are recruiting at a higher level than the rest. Chris Rump, Nick Eason, recruiting's kind of not bad, not the greatest, but not the worst. Clemson's not getting that big superstar 5-star recently, but you would expect they would eventually be able to do that again. And they have them on the team already. They're going to have a few for the team next year. So they're having some success bringing in guys. Ben Boulware is brand new to the role. He really maybe shouldn't have gotten the position just because of no experience at all. And he hasn't been able to recruit very well so far. His 2026 class, he doesn't have any linebackers. When you look at Mike Reed, he's got some guys. When you look at Mickey Kahn, he's got some guys. So, and higher ranked guys. So that's what I look at, and if Ben Boulware has a few years where he's not able to show that he can bring in anybody that's, maintaining the talent level, then that would be another former player hire with no experience that ended up being a problem for the team. As much as it would tee up perfect for Ben Boulware to do well, being a former player, being, kind of a rah guy, a true leader, in your face kind of dude, he's probably a good coach, position coach wise, but recruiting is really where I put all my eggs in one basket. I mean, you got to bring in better players. That's where the eye test comes into play as well for me, is that they're missing, speed on this defense, and they're missing a fierceness and an anger on the defensive line, that it just feels as if they're coasting. It feels as if they're just not trying that hard. But in a lot of ways, when you look back at the national championship defensive lines, those guys, first and second string guys, were big dudes. Clemson has a weight problem, in my opinion, on that defensive line. They have an inexperience problem behind that first line of defense. And then they have an explosiveness problem on the defensive line as well. Most of them get blocked up and stay blocked up. One of the bright spots, I guess you could say, is Will Helt, and the other bright spot would be Jaheim Lawson. But Jaheim Lawson's admittedly not, got the measurables that you were really looking for. The defense is not a disaster by any means, but it is definitely not Clemson level. And the eye test proves it. They can't stop teams from getting first downs. They keep them out there. They don't disrupt their offense at all. I'm still kind of scratching my head on Tom Allen here, because I felt as if Tom Allen would be able to improve a Wes Goodwin defense immediately, and we're not seeing that. I have some of the same question marks that I had with Garrett Riley with Tom Allen. I think everything's on the table, even the brand new coach, because, I'm going with my eye test and my gut feeling. And my gut feeling is saying that, there's a lot going wrong, and I can't just exempt any one person, even if they're in their first year. Clemson's got a long way to go to get back to the Clemson of old when it comes to defense. Stats or not, middle of the pack or not, when you look at it and you can tell it's not a Clemson defense and not the Clemson standard, something is going wrong for sure. And even the coaches aren't exempt in that case. All right, next segment, we're going to talk about the leaks on the defense and how they're going to be able to clean those up right here on Locked On Clemson. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, but with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines your customer communications. It works right through the app on your phone or your computer, so there's no more carrying two phones or relying on a landline. Whether you're the sole operator juggling everything or a part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. You can even keep your existing number for free. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love doing it because my FanDuel or my fantasy football team is in shambles right now, only 1-6 overall, although we're predicted to win this week. But when I'm down on my fantasy football, I can go on to FanDuel and find all kinds of different games that you can get into and contests, whether you're a casual fan or one of those ones that loves diving into the stats. FanDuel makes the game day experience much better. So what are you waiting for? Use FanDuel.com and download the FanDuel app today to get started. There's a lot of different concerns that you have from the defense overall, from the very front of the defensive line all the way back to the secondary. When you think about Clemson's defense, it's kind of like, where do you want to start? The defensive line has not, stepped up and played to its potential or its expectations. TJ Parker has been very lackluster. Peter Woods has been really too easy in getting double teamed. And, when you see him try to break off and get to guys, he really doesn't have good side to side speed or length. And so you've got a problem with him in that case. Getting double teamed, kind of locks him up. TJ Parker in the mix as well. They get bundled up in the middle. It's fair game for anybody. Steph Green and DeMonte Capehart. Green did well versus the Tar Heels, but still very inconsistent. You don't know what you're getting from him. Will Helt is good on the stat sheet, but in a lot of ways, you don't see him when you need him the most either. So the defensive line is kind of just all over the place. Nothing exciting, nothing intimidating from the defensive line at all. Back up to the linebacker group. There's just really Wade Woodaz has been exposed many times. The coaching staff says he's still doing good, but you really don't know what his best skill set is out there. He does a little bit of everything, but not anything super great. Sammy Brown plays with a lot of speed and a lot of fire, and he gets in on everything, but he also can get kind of doubled up and lost out there in open space. So while you trust him to kind of make up for it, and he's a ruthless guy out there, he's not perfect himself. They still only do 2 linebackers, which I have been a big kind of opponent of, I guess you could say, because it seems as if it just doesn't work for this personnel. To me, I would bring in Jeremiah Alexander and make this defense a 4-3. it almost seems like this defense needs to be something that it is based on its players and not just fit into a nickel formation because that's what you want to do. Same thing on the offensive side of the ball, fitting into this guard tackle base, pull base, counter base, whatever Garrett Riley is doing. It doesn't fit the personnel that he has. I would venture to say that both offensive and defensive coordinators are trying to run a defense that doesn't really seem to fit the players that they have, you know? So that's why I would say both of them kind of are on my list of, I don't know if I trust you. Now I don't have as much dislike for Tom Allen yet because he's only been around for half a season, and I like his attitude. I like his style, much more than Wes Goodwin for sure. But I need to see it on Saturdays look like it makes sense. And in many ways it doesn't. And it's not really Tom Allen's fault in a lot of ways because they just can't get any pressure. They're not getting pressure with 4. They're not getting pressure with 6. But then it goes back to, well, why are you still sticking in this kind of formation if it's obviously not working? And maybe that's just something that they're going to have to work through because this is the base that they want to do. But it does seem a little bit concerning that this is the base. It all goes back to one thing that I've heard in the past is something similar along the lines. You've probably heard it as well of, well, Clemson's they've done great in recruiting and they've got the clay, to be molded, meaning that they have the talent, they have the players that can be molded and improved. But this week, we kind of heard a little bit of the opposite of, well, we need to get a certain type of player, more speed, more length, people who want to play football. So it went from, a few months ago of Clemson's got a lot of clay to work with, good clay to work with, to now, well, I need to bring in my own guys. I need to bring in guys that are going to fit what I want to do. So I don't really know how much I trust all of that, to be honest with you. Outside runs, screen games, the edges get beat a lot. The only time you really see TJ Parker doing anything is when he's out in coverage. Few missed tackles here and there, but I do think the tackling has improved overall. Quarterback being able to sit in and just dissect the secondary has been a big problem this year. As I mentioned, those teams that they've played so far, can you name me one game in a loss where they really disrupted the quarterback from doing anything? Against SMU, the quarterback was hurt, and we found out this week he had a stomach bug. Now, I say that, but I also want to say that it's kind of depressing because Cade Klubnik, had a high ankle sprain, and I'm not taking that away from him, but it makes you look pretty bad when your opposing quarterback also is dealing with lower leg injury, hip, ankle injury, and had the stomach bug and played, and you didn't. And I would almost have wished that Cade didn't even try to go out there. He had this little ankle brace on, was kind of limping around, but then just less than 2 days later, Dabo immediately was like, oh, he's better. He's fine. I'm not really understanding that at all. I'm not saying that it wasn't real because I know high ankle sprains can be bad, but it just wasn't a good look, to see the opposing team player kind of fight through his injuries and problems and sickness and win the game. And it kind of goes back to that ruthlessness, that heart, that desire, that chip. The teams that have beaten Clemson have had that kind of attitude from their players and from their coaches and have been much more purposeful with how they've attacked the Tigers compared to how the Tigers attacked them. Clemson definitely has to play faster. So If Tom Allen is saying he's got to get faster players, and you need to find it on your own team, because you still have many more games to go, and you got to try to be bowl eligible and win the South Carolina game. So if they need more speed and more length, they need to find it on their own team and figure it out. That's why they get paid the big bucks, to figure it out, not to go in, to a season like they have and produce something that looks like they didn't even really pay attention in fall practice. Because that's where it's at right now. It looks like the coaching staff was on Netflix while practice was on. They don't know what players to put out there. The players that are out there aren't really scaring anybody. And then the play calls that are being made and the schemes that are out there seem to be making the team worse than better. Clemson's all over the place. Leaks everywhere. All right, hey, we're going to finish up the show talking about the standard at Clemson, and can they get back to that Clemson standard right here on Locked On Clemson. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, from footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention with how they craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. And Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus award than anyone else as of August 2025. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Finishing up the show here on Locked On Clemson. Thank you again to the everydayers who sticking through to the third segment of the show. And also thank you to those of you who are brand new to the show and sticking with us. Hey, if you haven't by now and you're still with us, please go into wherever you're listening to this and make sure you hit the follow and the subscribe button. If you can give a rating or whatever, I'd appreciate that as well. Any way we can improve the algorithm would be great. Any way that you can get more content and not miss another episode, that'd be great for me. So I really appreciate it. I started this back in February, and we're still grinding through here. This has been a tough season to do so, but been fun talking Clemson with you all. So thank you. Can Clemson get back to the standard, though? Clemson standard used to be being one of the top defenses and offenses in the ACC. They're definitely not the top offense in the ACC. Right now, they're 400 yards per game, puts them at 11th overall in the ACC through October 22nd. Florida State leading the way, and they're doing about 523 yards per game. Duke, who's coming up next against Clemson, is second in the ACC with about 460 yards per game. That is a concern for me, because Darian Mensah and Duke know how to manage a football game from offensive standpoint. Clemson still struggling, and it's going to be a home game in which Clemson hasn't proven that they know how to win those games. The standard on offense is just not there right now. And it goes back to me about Garrett Riley. I don't know if this is Garrett Riley's last season or not, but this is a bad last season if it is. And I don't know if Dabo wants to keep him or not, but if you keep Garrett Riley, the concerns are still there with the base offense just doesn't seem to work at this level. He's never really won the games that mattered the most. When he came here, he lost the first game of his career here. And then the second season, he lost four of the most difficult games, all four of the most difficult games in the season. And then now this season, has had one of the worst seasons Clemson's had in decades. So to me, Garrett Riley's been an utter failure. I would not continue with Garrett Riley because simply not because he's not a good person, not because he's not a good offensive coordinator, but because it doesn't seem like what he wants to do can fit. And him also kind of having to be closely tied with the quarterback and being the quarterback coach up until really last year with Taj Boyd stepping in the quarterback coach position. To me, Taj Boyd is not a quarterback whisperer. I don't believe in that. I think that's a bad move. I think you need a quarterback coach and an offensive coordinator combined. I want to go back to that traditional way. And I want a quarterback whisperer and an offensive mind that works outside of Sonny Dykes' bubble. What we've seen is Garrett Riley's style or game plan or decision-making doesn't work outside of help with Sonny Dykes. Everybody talks about Dabo Swinney being that guy who interjects himself into these plays, but it doesn't make any sense. He's the head coach. He's the figurehead, but he's not a play caller. Garrett Riley was better when he had somebody who actually was a play caller like Sonny Dykes to help him out. He doesn't have that now. Dabo's not giving him that to the level, and it's just not worked well to me. Situational play calls haven't been that great. He hasn't won any of like the most important games. Let's be honest, they made it into the playoffs last season as one of the worst playoff teams on the list. And they also really just haven't beaten any of their teams that they need to beat that are good teams. So Clemson's offense has kind of not been the standard for a few years now. And that's been a big concern for me because we thought Garrett Riley, being a Broyles Award winner, would be somebody who could take this offense to the next level. And it really hasn't seen that. Now, if I'm Garrett Riley and I'm Dabo Swinney and you tell me to keep these two, keep Garrett Riley, then I don't know how you can keep him without him changing his base offense. It's hurting the offensive line. It's hurting the run game, and it's not winning big games. So I don't see how you can keep him considering those things in general. But if you did keep him, then you would have to go and get a legit quarterback that can handle it. And maybe Christopher Vizina is that guy. But I think you're going to have to get some sort of legit running game that can back up what Garrett Riley's trying to do and get in some more agile offensive linemen that can actually do the guard tackle counter or the pulls that he's trying to do. If it's simply you're going to keep the play calling, then you got to get players that can run it a little bit better than what you have right now. Christopher Vizina did a good job against SMU, but it was a bad SMU secondary, and he didn't win the game. My biggest thing about a transfer portal quarterback is going to be they're too expensive. I'd rather not pay for a transfer portal quarterback. It's going to be a lot of money. But maybe you can find somebody that is worth it. On the defensive side of the ball, as I mentioned earlier, not being able to get the team off the field in third downs, being able to, or even just allowing teams to have a bunch of first downs. They're one of like, they're not in the top 50 in allowing first downs. They allow almost 20 first downs a game. To be in the top 25, you gotta only allow about 16, 17. So Clemson is allowing defense-wise, allowing a lot of first downs compared to their opponents and compared to the national average. But then it goes back to the defensive line that you have is not as dominant as you thought it would be. And also going back to the defensive coordinator, the 4-2-5, I mean, I could care less to see it again. I don't like it. It just seems like a lot of things aren't working well together for this team. There may be a lot more losses along the way. Right now, team rankings has Clemson on average possibly being a 6-6 team. The best they could do right now, according to team rankings probability, is a 7-5. So not anything that we thought and expected for Clemson in the standard that they should be upholding for 2025. Hey, don't forget to follow me over on X at the Morgan T Show. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss another episode. And thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono break down the most interesting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championships to every game in between. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.